The way that technology has evolved in smartphones over the past decade has meant that we all now basically have DSLR cameras in our pockets. But what if it could also be a studio microphone? What if we could take those voice note recordings and put them straight into a project without ever having to get anywhere near a proper studio mic? I mean, great ideas don't always strike when you're sat in a studio. Well, I think we can, and in this video I'm going to show you how these iPhone recorded vocals went from this
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
to this.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
But first, let me tell you how we accidentally ended up using an iPhone to record these very vocals last year. Now, the idea for the track actually started out with me asking my girlfriend, who was away from home at the time, to just record a quick vocal line that I just thought of. The initial plan was that this would just be a placeholder vocal and that we'd re-record them when she came back home. But after applying all of these effects, which I'll show you in great detail in a sec, the vocal just fit perfectly in the mix. Regardless of this, we did actually try and re-record these vocals using a proper microphone, because that's the thing that you should do as a producer, right? But we just ended up liking the phone recording more anyway, so we just stuck with it. And this isn't a unique case either. Dom Dollar, with his breakout track Take It back in 2018, made a post going over how the main vocal came to be. He wrote, "The vocals were written and recorded while sick in bed, using my tour manager's iPhone earbud mic and a Duna cover as my vocal booth. At the time, I'd planned on recording the demo with a cleaner take when I got home to Australia, but I was never able to recreate something as gritty and weird, so it stayed." Even Skrillex said in this 2024 Grammys interview that these days he reaches for his iPhone for vocals over anything else.
I don't even bother getting the real microphone out anymore. I just use the iPhone now for finished vocals. That's really nice.
Another example, and one that I think you've probably already heard about anyway, is that Steve Lacy spent the majority of his solo career creating music purely on his iPhone. Not just the vocals, but the actual writing and the production as well. I'll link to that video below. But I think that in my case, as well as the other cases as well, it simply highlights the fact that music production is more accessible than it has ever been. And if you find yourself getting caught up in this mindset of, well, I don't have this microphone, so I can't record this, or I don't have this synth, so I can't make this, you've just got to snap out of it and make it work. Having said that, let's break down all of the effects that I have on this vocal chain so you can replicate this yourself. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is I'll play the vocal completely clean again, just so you can hear how it sounded before.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more? 'Cause it doesn't seem real what I'm looking for.
Now, before we go any further with the vocal processing, it's important to mention that when you're actually recording your vocals with a phone, that A, you're in a quiet room that's not too echoey, so no recording vocals on the bog, and B, that you keep your phone close to your mouth, but without being too close. You know, maybe around 6 or 7 inches or so, like maybe something like this. Anyway, let's get back to this vocal processing. Now, I do believe this might have already been time stretched a little bit already. I can't find the true original file, annoyingly, but that's the only thing that's been done to it. So the first thing we have on the chain is this de-esser. This is working to dip the volume on any of those harsh S sounds, otherwise known as a sibilant.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
The sibilant frequency is different for every vocalist as well. I have mine set to 12 kilohertz currently, and I found that was the right frequency just by pulling up an EQ, and if you just take the vocal and listen to it and listen for when them S or them sibilants are.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more? 'Cause it doesn't seem real what I'm looking for.
You can hear that they're up here around the sort of 12 kilohertz range, but that's what the de-esser is doing. Next we've got this compressor, which is just taking a little bit off the top.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
Not a whole lot of gain reduction there, but it's just bringing the level down on some of those louder syllables. But I do prefer when mixing vocals to use multiple compressors across the chain, rather than just like one absolutely decapitating the overall sound. I just find that I get better results when I do it in little increments. Next up we have some FabFilter multiband, although when I looked at this earlier on I kind of found that it's not really doing a whole lot.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
It's doing a little bit of gating. I've clearly just chosen this single vocal gating preset here, but you know, it works. The vocal in the finished product sounds good, so I'm not going to remove it. I'm just going to keep it there, even if it's not really doing a huge amount. Next, we've got some OTT, and again, we've got it on 21% there, so it's not doing a huge amount.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
But with the recording being quite mid-heavy, it's taming those mids and bringing out the high end just a little bit as well. Next, we've got an EQ, just getting rid of that low-end hum, as well as balancing out some of the low end on the vocal itself as well. Okay, now this is something that I do on almost all of my vocals. We've got a little bit of overdrive distortion on here, blended with the original. The overdrive is only affecting some of the high frequencies. I've got the dry signal on a different chain here with no effects on there. And then we've got the wet signal, so it's duplicated, but with that pedal, with the overdrive on there, as well as an EQ after the fact as well. So I'll play that now.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
At this stage, it might sound a little much, but with the rest of the effects on there that come afterwards, I find that it really gives some body to an otherwise thin vocal recording, which is, a characteristic of the iPhone microphone as well. You don't really get a huge amount of depth in the mic, so I feel that this is a good way to kind of compensate that. Next, again, we've got a glue compressor.
Can you make it make sense? Can you?
Not really doing a whole lot, just taking a bit off the top. We've got a little bit of chorus as well, again, quite low on the dry wet.
Can you make it make sense? Can you?
Just giving a little bit more body. And then we've got another glue compressor with the mastering catch peaks setting on there.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
Again, just taking out some of them louder transients. Next, we've got this isotope vocal doubler. I believe this is free, but what it's doing is it's doubling up the vocal.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
And it's literally just providing that separation and giving a little bit more sort of stereo width as well. So again, just taking that sort of idea of a thin vocal and trying to kind of build out from it a little bit. We've got a saturator on here, just adding a little bit more distortion. Again, nothing huge here either.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
Followed by a speech enhancer, which again is another Ableton multiband preset, doing a similar thing to what the OTT was doing before.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
But just taming those mids a little bit again, bringing out some more of the high end and a little bit of the low as well, but we don't have that much low frequency content at the moment. Next, again, this is something that I love to do, is I've got two delays on here.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
We've got one that is on the ping pong setting, so that is actually bouncing the signal from the right to the left speaker or the right to the left earphone, as well as just a normal delay which is going straight down the middle. These have got different timings as well, so again it's just a really sort of interesting effect and just giving it a little bit more depth overall. Next, of course, we've got just a classic Ableton reverb, quite low, 33%, almost 2-second decay.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
And what that reverb is doing is it's just putting it in a space, helping it sit better with the instrumental as well, which is quite reverb heavy. So I thought that, obviously a decent amount of reverb is going to fit nicely with the vocal as well. Following that, we've got another EQ, taking out, a lot of the low end, some of the low mids as well.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
Followed by another FabFilter multiband, which is actually affecting.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
The vocal, especially on sort of the low mids as well. And then we follow it up finally with a soothe, again removing some of those harsh frequencies that I'd probably brought in with the pedal and the distortion and things like that.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more?
It means that we get to keep sort of the body that has been built up from the distortion, but it gets rid of some of the harshness as well. So a little bit of push and pull. You can kind of see as I've gone through all of the effects step by step, I'm just nudging it closer and closer into being sort of the right sound and putting it in the right direction. So for the last time, I'll play you the final result in context with the instrumental.
Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more? 'Cause it doesn't seem real what I'm looking for. Can you make it make sense? Can you tell me more? Can you make it make sense?
Now, does this mean that if you use this exact vocal chain, you're going to get the perfect result for your track? No, it doesn't. And does it mean that I will use this exact vocal chain for other tracks going forward, potentially, but probably not. It's probably going to be some kind of variation of it. Like I said before, clearly when I've been mixing this, I've just been adding a few subtle effects along the way to build up to be a vocal that fits with my instrumental. And you know, if you're looking to replicate this kind of sound in your own productions, you might think, okay, well, I want less reverb, or I want more reverb, or less distortion, so on and so forth. But hopefully this video breakdown does give you some insight and some ideas of some things that you could try, as well as proving that it's not about the gear, it's about the experience and the time and effort that you ultimately put into producing music. I hope this video helped. Feel free to check out any of my other videos next to my head here, and if this video did help, please do consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.